Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, taking a look at a 2023 NFL mock draft for the Houston Texans. This team is a blast to fire up mock drafts for because they have a lot of draft capital and they quite frankly have a lot of positions of need. This depth chart obviously needs a lot of help. I love the D'Amico Ryans hire, and the Texans seem to be poised to kind of get themselves back as kind of a better team in the NFL. Again, before we get into this, I just want to say thank you to you guys. These are some of my favorite videos to make because I obviously love and kind of specialize, if you guys are not new to the channel, kind of evaluating these college prospects as they enter the NFL draft. And then I get to talk to a lot of the NFL fans about how they want their teams to look, what position fits and what position needs they see for their teams. And I have a blast making these videos. I enjoy that I get to talk college prospects with you guys. And again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. The support you guys have shown truly means a lot. And let me know in the comment section what you guys think of this mock. Again, that's the beauty of NFL draft season, is discussing, debating prospects, debating players, position fits. Appreciate all the support you guys have shown. Let's get into this mock draft. Again, the Houston Texans drafting two. I don't think it's crazy that Houston and Chicago get a little trade going if Houston absolutely loves a quarterback. If you guys haven't seen our quarterback position ranks, one, go check them out. Two, Bryce Young is the best quarterback in this class. I don't think people should overthink it. Yeah, I get he's a little smaller, but the film that he put out, he's a playmaker that you feel really confident at the next level. He's going to continue to be one of the best players on the football field. I don't know what it is, but Bryce Young has it. He's very cool. He's calm and collected. He sees the field really slowly. And even in that Alabama team, that 2022 offense was not good for Alabama. Bryce Young made that offense run, and that's something you absolutely love. And when you're looking at a guy like C.J. Stroud, he had everything he wanted. I mean, he has multiple guys who are going to go in the top 3 rounds on the offensive line. Guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, he was throwing to. He had everything kind of perfect. Bryce Young, not so much in 2022, and still made it happen. I think the Houston Texans certainly could consider trading up to get that number 1 overall pick to make sure they get Bryce Young. In this case, they stay at 2. They're able to get their quarterback of the future. And then you're picking at 12. And I think there's a lot of different places you could go with this. And I think Quentin Johnson would be a guy that you're really targeting. He's unfortunately, off the board 6 to the Detroit Lions. That would be, in my opinion, the dream scenario. You draft Bryce Young, and then you go get somebody who's extremely talented and dynamic to be a pass catcher for him, because I think the wide receiver room is something that needs to be addressed. That being said, Quentin Johnson off the board, and this is probably where you're thinking best player available. I think Myles Murphy would be a phenomenal fit. He's somebody who, if you want to make your defense better, Myles Murphy's going to make your team a lot better. He's phenomenal against the run, and he's a guy that has a lot of good traits as a pass rusher. I think the 2022 film wasn't necessarily as good as you would hope, but 2021, he's absolutely dominant. He's 6'4", maybe even 6'5", 275 pounds. His get-off is phenomenal for a guy 275 pounds. He can win with speed on the outside. He can win right through tackles. And you see this edge class, a guy like Lucas Van Ness. I think Myles Murphy's a much better prospect who's going to translate to the NFL quicker and more effectively at the next level. I think Myles Murphy, who is still a top 10 prospect on my board, would be a phenomenal fit where, yeah, it might not be the most glaring need for the Houston Texans. But again, this is a team that's going best player available in this draft, and Myles Murphy would be the best player available at pick 12. Now pick 33. I think this is where you could be looking at bolstering up that interior offensive line. A couple of guys I really like. John Michael Schmitz is going to be a lock. Phenomenal prospect coming out of Minnesota. The one knock is he's a 6-year guy, so he's a little bit older, but the film is really, really good. And yeah, you want wide receiver, but my problem with this wide receiver is like Josh Downs, Kayshon Boutte, those guys would be really good options. Jalen Hyatt would be a really good option. I don't really view them as first-round talent. John Michael Schmitz, although it's at the center position, which I get isn't necessarily the biggest need, or it's a big need for the Houston Texans. It's not necessarily the flashiest or most important position. He's a really, really good player who, like, you go back and look at what Kansas City did drafting Creed Humphrey, super valuable for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think you just go get good prospects. That's normally a good recipe of building a team. And John Michael Schmitz is a phenomenal prospect that I think I will have a first-round grade on. So at 33, I don't think it's crazy to go up and take a center who you know is going to be very, very good at the next level. early round 3. This is Jack Campbell. I mean, I know you got Christian Harris last year, but Jack Campbell staring you dead in the face at 65 makes a lot of sense. You kind of look at the positions of need. I don't think it's the biggest need they have, but I think it's certainly a spot they could improve on. I want to take a look at the wide receivers. Jalen Hyatt, I really do like Jalen Hyatt, and I like him at this range. I don't necessarily love going up and getting Jalen Hyatt early round 2, but at early round 3, like you just bet on the speed. And there are some question marks about Jalen Hyatt. One is being at Tennessee, they ran a lot of stacks. They got him matched up on a lot of safeties and nickels. And so he looked phenomenal, but he wasn't necessarily going against NFL talent at that cornerback position and didn't really have to deal with much press coverage because of those stacks. So you have some question marks about Jalen Hyatt. He's put on some weight. I think he can deal with that physicality a little bit better. I'm not comfortable taking him in the top 50, but at 65, I get a little bit more comfortable with that. And again, go bet on the speed. He's going to be a guy that might run sub 4.3, absolute blazer that can just add value to your offense. And you have another pick coming up early round 3 at 73 where you can continue to just eat your vegetables, draft really, really good players. Keely Ringo, if you're talking about drafting best player available, Keely Ringo would be a guy that you're taking a look at. I think maybe like Darnell Wright sitting there, like he's going to be a really, really good right tackle. I also think he has some guard versatility as well. Taking a look at this tackle class, it gets a little ugly after Darnell Wright, and this is a chance to go get a really good tackle who's a former 5-star prospect at Tennessee. He actually kind of kicked out Wanya Morris, who had to transfer to Oklahoma, who is another prospect I really like at this tackle position. Again, not necessarily. I want to let's check the edge class before we fire off on Darnell Wright, because I do think there are some guys at that edge like Isaiah McGuire who are very, very good. I do like Zach Harrison, KJ Henry. Looks like there's some good edge players still available. So let's go take like the last tackle that I really think is kind of a top 50 prospect in Darnell Wright. He had a phenomenal Senior Bowl. All the athletic tools to be a good tackle. I think he's going to be a right tackle in the NFL are there. Go up and get a very good football player in Darnell Wright. And then maybe let's try to address this edge position now. You see Noah Sewell there. Noah Sewell, I don't think you can really draft. I just don't see him kind of translating at the next level. Not fast enough, not athletic enough in space. Those are all things that NFL defenses are going to ask you to do as a linebacker. Noah Sewell, quite frankly, you can't make that happen. I'm between Zach Harrison and KJ Henry. I think Zach Harrison probably has the higher ceiling. He's got some stupid traits. He's another guy that he got Myles Murphy. Zach Harrison, very good against the run. I think he, like Myles Murphy, can be a very good pass rusher. You know DeMeco Ryans is going to want to impact the quarterback. When DeMeco Ryans has elite defenses, it's because they can impact the quarterback by just rushing 4 guys. Zach Harrison's a dude that you can build around. I think he's worth taking a spot that he's a little bit more raw than KJ Henry. But I think the traits are better, and DeMeco Ryans is no doubt going to take a look and say, I want to get those traits. He had phenomenal success with the Ohio State edge and Nick Bosa. Let's go get Zach Harrison from the Ohio State University. Picking 138 next, and this is kind of where it gets fun and kind of where I enjoy the video. Like a lot of these guys I've watched film on, and when I do my first round NFL mock drafts, I don't get to talk about some of these guys that I really like. Now, getting into the late day 3 range, I can talk about some of the sleepers that I enjoy a lot. Marvin Mims is one of the guys that would probably quantify at that list. Want to take a look at this wide receiver position as a whole before we fire off on one. Xavier Hutchinson, Raheem Jarrett. Marvin Mims is so far my favorite. He was a guy that a lot of people talked about a first-round talent coming into the season. He can win from the slot. I think he can play boundary. Marvin Mims probably worth taking a look at. Again, we didn't get Quentin Johnson early. We got a guy like Jalen Hyatt. Marvin Mims is more of a refined pass catcher that will add to Bryce Young's toolbox. I don't hate doubling up on wide receiver because when you look at that wide receiver room, like John Mechie coming back, I like Nico Collins. I don't love Nico Collins. You need a lot more talent at that wide receiver room. Let's go get a guy like Marvin Mims and maybe take a look at a running back as well before. Sorry, now I'm like thinking about some other prospects that I like a lot. Eric Gray. We're going to take Marvin Mims. I think it's a more important position of need. And when you look about developing and adding talent around Bryce Young, I think you got to help that wide receiver room. Pick 179 coming up. This could be where you target a running back. Dameon Pierce was stats. Dameon Pierce was an absolute lock. I think was picked in round 4 or 5, like kind of a sleeper pick that I love this film. He just didn't get enough workload at Florida. You might want to add like a pass catcher, which Kenny McIntosh would make a lot of sense. Another SEC running back. Dameon Pierce is a great all-purpose running back with the ball in his hands. I wouldn't say he's the best pass catcher. Kenny McIntosh is a phenomenal pass catcher. And again, I love the idea that you don't have to sign veteran running backs. The running back room is not great. Instead of adding and paying a free agent to come in, go get some really good running backs. And this is a deep, deep, deep running back room. And when you look at what running backs you want to take, Dameon Pierce is going to be the guy who's getting 20 carries a game. Kenny McIntosh, probably the best wide receiver or pass catching running back in this draft class at the running back position. Let's go take Kenny McIntosh and kind of round out a really, really strong running back room. Pick 188. Dylan Horn's one of my favorite prospects, and we've already addressed the edge position twice now, so probably not doing that. I think I was a massive fan of Brevin Jordan. He just doesn't seem like he's going to be an NFL caliber tight end. Cameron Latu from Alabama is not a horrible choice either. Kind of taking a look at more positions of need. Maybe take a look at this interior offensive line and continue to kind of just eat your vegetables. You already got John Michael Schmitz. Maybe take in. Here's a side note. If you pass on John Michael Schmitz, Ricky Stromberg at pick 188 would be phenomenal. I mean, we already picked a rookie center who I really like in John Michael Schmitz, but Ricky Stromberg, if I were to run this back, you almost want to pass on John Michael Schmitz and get Ricky Stromberg at the beginning of round 6 because he's a phenomenal player. I think there's some cornerbacks too. I mean, I know you got Derek Stingley last year. Obviously struggled with some, Cameron Brown I like a lot. Cameron Mitchell I like a lot. Rajon Wright I also like. Rajon Wright's got some serious length to him. I think it's a little early for those guys. Those guys have a lot of question marks. Maybe check the tackles. McClendon Curtis, let's go get, and he's going to be a guard at the next level, but 35-inch arms. He's got a massive, massive wingspan, and he's super powerful. From Chattanooga, he sought the Senior Bowl. I think he struggles with some athleticism, and so I think that's why he's probably not going to be a tackle. Extremely good in the run game, and if Houston wants to run the ball, McClendon Curtis would be a guy that addresses that, and I think that'd be a very, very nice pick for the Houston Texans. And we still got 3 more picks, I should say. I want to maybe take a look at the interior defensive line as well. And it's kind of why it's so Cameron Young. That's a lot. Cameron Young was phenomenal at the Senior Bowl. DJ Dale would also be a really good pick. Dante Stills is another guy I like, but we're going to go get Cameron Young, who I still need to get into his film, but he was a very, very good performer at the Senior Bowl. Again, I think you're just kind of eating your vegetables, getting some players that are going to make the team and add depth and round out this roster. Nick Broker would be another one who kind of qualifies for that. The Winters we haven't addressed the linebacker spot. That might be not a bad. I mean, I liked Christian Harris. Servosia Dennis is phenomenal, and he's a guy that's going to be really good in coverage. Servosia Dennis is a very, very good and steady linebacker. I've watched him for a couple of years at Pitt, and I've been always impressed with the athleticism and the ability to play in space. Then he goes to the Senior Bowl and is just locking up running backs in the one-on-ones. I don't think there was a pass completed when he was out there working on running backs. Very, very good in space. And when you're talking about drafting a linebacker late round 6, early round 7, go get a guy who's going to make the team. And then Wanya Morris, I already talked about him. He's another guy that I get we've already drafted a tackle in Darnell Wright, but Wanya Morris is another really, really good prospect. Maybe taking a look at the cornerback position before we just go up and take Wanya Morris. I like Rajon Wright, but he's probably a UDFA. Wanya Morris probably will not make it to round 7. If he does, I think the Houston Texans should certainly consider taking him. And again, you look at those tackles that you got going, and I don't hate him, but you want to go get good players. And Wanya Morris, it's never enough depth at the offensive line. I think Wanya Morris would make a lot of sense. Rounding out this draft class, one thing I probably wish I did a little differently is waiting on that center. I think John Michael Schmitz, who's a lock and is going to be very good, and you can make the Creed Humphrey argument where it's like, if there's a really good prospect, go take him. I don't care if he plays center. That's probably and PFF obviously doesn't like it because I'm higher on John Michael Schmitz than PFF. I think that pick still makes a lot of sense, but it also would make a lot of sense to go get another guy you really like, and then address that center position with a guy like Olu from Michigan or Ricky Stromberg from Arkansas. Jalen Hyatt, not a horrible pick. Darnell Wright, I love that pick. Kenny McIntosh, McClendon Curtis. Honestly, like there are a ton of picks to round out this depth chart. And I think we did a good job addressing both sides of the ball. Got 3 guys on the offensive line, a couple guys on the defensive line, actually 4 guys on the offensive line. Looking back, maybe overdid it on the offensive line, but I think these guys are all really, really good prospects where you just kind of got to eat your vegetables and go get some good players. All those guys, very good players. What was PFF's final grade for the boys? A solid B. Honestly, higher grades than I've been getting on most of these mocks. Again, appreciate you guys for checking us out. If you do enjoy the content, again, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate you guys and all the support you guys have shown. We'll talk to y'all later.